Well, how you doing, everyone? Welcome to this episode of the Cajun Conservative Show. Today, I am your host, Isaac Hayes, talking about life, talking about liberty, and yes, talking about the pursuit of happiness and showing you the world that us Cajuns do have intelligence. Ladies and gentlemen, a very eventful weekend, especially in Washington, D.C., where we pick up our story for Monday, the 15th of January. The White House staff relocated after pro-Palestinian rioters damaged anti-scale fencing and hurl objects at cops. This happened on Saturday night as this was anti-Israel protesters and rioters gathered outside the White House on Saturday night with some demonstrators damaging security fencing and hurling objects at police. The demonstrators were heard chanting "Ceasefire now" and "Free, free Palestine," with many waving Palestinian flags. "Yemen, Yemen, make us proud. Take another ship around. Turn another ship around" was also recited at the demonstration hours after the strike was launched against the Houthis in Yemen. This is all according to Fox News. The U.S. Secret Service told Fox News Digital that some fences were damaged outside the White House and that staff members and journalists were relocated. As a result, the White House also said on Saturday that President Biden is currently at Camp Davis, so our president was secure in another location, thank goodness. During the demonstration near the White House complex, January 13th, a portion of the anti-scale fencing that was erected for the event sustained territorial damage, and the statement read, the issues were properly repaired at the site by the U.S. Secret Service support team. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have anti-Israel protesters going to the White House, waving Palestinian flags and saying things that really is bizarre for America. Now, 9 out of 10, I don't know if all of them are, but 9 out of 10, there were a lot of American citizens there. And American citizens waving Palestinian flags. Isn't that an insurrection according to the left? Because, ladies and gentlemen, look, January 6th was not a day to remember. We all can agree on that. Was it right that some, not all, some supporters of Donald Trump took it upon themselves in their rage to go into the Capitol? No, it was not right. It shouldn't have been done. The reason it shouldn't have been done was because it held up a process that could question the voting process. If you remember, before, I think 2 years ago, there was a process where one senator, one congressman could go ahead and object to a state, and they would have to talk about it at least for 2 hours. And if they came to the conclusion something was up, they can return the electoral college votes, or they can keep the votes. 9 out of 10 those votes would have been kept, but the arguments that was brought on by MAGA Republicans, they would have been heard. But people took it upon themselves after Mike Pence said, look, I don't believe it's in my authority to do that, so I'm not going to do it. Some people got upset, and they took their anger out onto the Capitol, which they shouldn't have done. They should have been cool-headed, and they should have just left it alone. I understand their frustration. Don't get me wrong. No one wanted to see Biden in there for 4 years. But what the left points out about that day is how people were waving American flags and how they were trying to take over the government. And these people are extremists. They're waving American flags and Donald Trump flags. And these are extremists. These are insurrectionists. And they all need to be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. That was called insurrection. And people are in jail because of this so-called insurrection on the Capitol. But when I start seeing things like this, I'm asking, where's the standard for these Palestinian protesters? Now, I wouldn't be talking about this story if they just went and protest. 9 out of 10, they would not make the news. But this protest turned into a riot, just like January 6th did. When you have people throwing objects at the cops, remember, that's one of the big stories that the January 6th committee was trying to push home, that these people on January 6th injured police officers. Well, these people were throwing things at the police officers. Why weren't they arrested? And you might be saying, well, oh, they had to be some arrests. Well, not according to the U.S. Secret Service. As a precaution, some members of the media and the staff in the proximity to Pennsylvania Avenue were temporarily relocated while the issue was being addressed. The statement continued, the Secret Service made no arrests associated with the march, and there was no property damage to the White House or the adjoining building. Oh, okay. So if you're a MAGA Republican and you go into the Capitol, you're going to get arrested for violence and damage. But if you're protesting outside the White House for Palestine and you damage property, you're all right. Why do I say that? Because later in the article, according to Fox News, this was a statement from the Secret Service. The right to peacefully protest is one of the cornerstones of our democracy, and the Metropolitan Police Department has long supported those who visit our city to demonstrate safety. Smith's statement read, however, violence, destructive behavior, and criminal activity are not tolerated, but no one was arrested. And I wonder if they will use the technology to find out who was at this protest to start investigating who damaged the fence. The police chief added that some officers were assaulted by demonstrators in Lafayette Park. Again, police officers were assaulted. Police officers were in danger. Are they going to call for insurrection? Now, ladies and gentlemen, this isn't the first time the White House has been assaulted, especially not by anti-Palestinian protesters. It happened in 2023. Don't you remember? I reported it, and I'm bringing out the same arguments that I brought out then in that episode. How these people put smeared blood on the White House fence and were yelling something Akbar. I can't remember the whole statement. That I asked then, was that an insurrection? They had people waving Palestinian flags. I said that disturbed me more because they were waving Palestinian flags. And then we can't forget about 2020 and this is from the Associated Press. So if anybody ever tells me, oh, Isaac, this is hogwash, that never happened. Secret Service agent rushed President Donald Trump to the White House bunker on Friday night as hundreds of protesters gathered outside the executive mansion, some of them throwing rocks and tugging at police barricades. Trump spent nearly an hour in a bunker, which was designed for use in emergencies like terrorist attack, according to a Republican close to the White House, who was not authorized to publicly discuss private matters and spoke on the conditions of amnesty. I can't say that word. He can't say, he had to keep his name private. All right. The account was confirmed by the administrators, officers who also spoke on conditions of not embassy. Like I said, I can't believe I can't read that word. Anyway, he had to keep his name private. So, but anyway, but this happened in 2020. This article was written March 31st of 2020. And to end out this episode, I really want to hit something home. Look, we hear all the time from the left how the right is violent because of January 6th. But they failed to mention that they have acted out on a regular basis of violence. And I know some people on the left, they're going to hear this and they're going to be, well, hold on, Isaac, how can you say that? Give us the proof. And I will. I'm going to bring you the receipts to all my claims. Let's start out in the so-called summer of love. In 2020, when you had cities burn up. Now, the why were they protesting? Well, it was the George Floyd incident where it was alleged that a police officer hurt an unarmed black man. And look, George Floyd died on the street. You cannot deny that. Now there is, according to the Daily Wire and Matt Walsh, the officer is trying to get a retrial because he thought there was some bias and stuff like that. There's a whole story around, but that incident happened. And look, it's justified that they can protest. Okay, I'm not against peaceful protests, as the article said in Fox News earlier. I think peaceful protests is great. You can peacefully protest. I'm not against peacefully protesting. It is in the Constitution. You should be able to protest. I'm not against that. But when it turns to violence, yes, I'm against that. And you notice every main protest of the left turns violent. Always. We had the 2020 incident with George Floyd. As I said, they were justified in going they could go protest. But across our country, we had cities on fire, while so-called news reporters were on their television screen saying it is a mostly peaceful protest and there's a building burning in the back. That was the famous shot from CNN. You had a whole city block in Seattle taken over by a group of people with firearms. And they called their new country Chaz. Why wasn't that called an insurrection? Well, because that was under Donald Trump. You see what I'm saying? And if Donald Trump would have said, hey, that's the insurrection, let's go get them, the left would have been accusing Donald Trump of not executing the Second Amendment or infringing their right on the Second Amendment. That happened in 2020. And then the incidents I just talked about right here at the White House in March 31st of 2020, where a sitting president had to go hide in a bunker. In 2023, Palestinian protesters smear fake blood on the White House fence and yelling or chanting war chants against our great White House. Now we have Saturday night, them trying to tear down fences. Why were they trying to tear down fences? Was it to get a closer look at the White House? Could they admire it? No, they wanted to get into the White House. Almost every left-wing protest turns violent. But the left and the media don't want to talk about those incidents of protest riots. They just want to focus on January 6th. Now, January 6th was a bad day in America. And we haven't been assaulted like that since the War of 1812. Or this was the worst event since the Civil War or Pearl Harbor, as some of our leaders made the assumption. This is all documented, by the way. I'm just saying. I'm just repeating facts. So if you're on the left, you're listening. Oh yeah, you're lying. No, I'm not lying. I'm bringing out facts. This is stuff that has happened in our country. And they just want to quote out January 6th. Now, also on one more point, then we're going to wrap this thing up and go home for the day. And you can continue your work day or, which I hope you have a good day, by the way. It's funny how I picked this up. And I picked this up from my normal sources, Fox News, Daily Wire, Breitbart, Daily Caller, all these. The conservative media reported this. To my knowledge, the mainstream media, has not really reported on this. My brother, the co-host of Brother Just Searching, Anthony Hayes, told me that he saw this on the news briefly. But the media didn't expand on this. They didn't put this story in the front. Why? Maybe because it made the left look bad. Now, you might be saying, Isaac, how does it make the left look bad? These are all Palestinian protests, and the left is standing for Israel. Well, they were at first. But they shifted their whole attention back to Ukraine. This is why we're having issues with spending problems, and we're probably going to make an episode later on this week talking about the Republicans' New Deal with their spending and what it involves. We're gonna dive into that later on. But you have, but majority of their voters, the voters are Palestinian. A lot of them. Okay, the Jewish people are Democrat voters as well, but the left don't want to highlight this story. Why? Because they don't want to offend the Palestinians. See, they want to keep, they try to play both sides of the fence. They're trying to stand on the side of Israel, but if you always hear them talk about Israel, they say, yes, Israel has a right to defend itself, but Israel needs to respect the Palestinians. So you see how they're playing a double-edged sword, and this is why they're not pushing this. And also, like I said, it would make them look, and look, it wouldn't make them look bad. Look, people shouldn't wave flags at the White House. The people shouldn't other flags besides the United States flag. But they're staying quiet on this because they don't want to offend the Palestinians. And I've already said on this program multiple times when we had an hour-long show. All this is, these protests are pro-Hamas, pro-Yemen, let's say this like this, pro-terrorist protest. And I never thought I would see a country like ours, especially the media, keep quiet on something that's so obviously wrong. But they are, because they want to protect Joe Biden, they want to protect the left, and they want that to be the main focus. It is wrong and it needs to be addressed, but unfortunately, until we get another administration in there, let's say well, I can't even say another administration because it is going to target Donald Trump, because I believe Donald Trump's going to be the nominee. They're going to target Donald Trump like they target him now, and they're going to try to stop Donald Trump at everything he's doing. Until the media realizes, hey, it's about freedom, and we need to do what's right like the old style journalists used to be, our country's still going to be in this whirlpool going down because the media is hiding facts from you, the American people. And, I'm going to quote my good friend, Dr. Michael Schwartz from Two Mics Live. He said this the other day on his show. We live in a society that I think is Michael Schwartz. It was either Michael Schwartz or my good friend Mike Calderese. They made the point that this country is in a one-day news cycle, unless it's something that could hurt a Republican candidate or Donald Trump. Then it goes on for days. But we live in a one-day news cycle where they quote it for 5 minutes and they leave it alone, and the American people are uninformed. And until that's fixed, our country will not turn around. But we need this corrupt media needs to learn that, hey, our freedom and presenting the facts to the American people is more important than your political agenda. Until they realize that, we need to keep going as well. Our podcast, the Cajun Conservative Show, Culper's Canteen Club, Scott Ford at the Scott Ford Show, Mike Calderese and Michael Schwartz, their podcast. Go subscribe to them because we tell you the truth. We tell you the truth. We're not sugarcoating anything. We will criticize Republicans. We will criticize conservatives if they do something wrong. We're not going to hide the stories. We're going to tell you the facts. And you need to listen to more publications like this. Because if you focus on CNN, ABC, and all of them, you're not going to get the full news story. You're just going to hear anti-Trump, and that's it. With that being said, that's going to end this episode of the Cajun Conservative Show. Thank you, as always, for listening to this episode. Remember that Jesus Christ is King. He's coming back, and he's coming back soon, so don't be faint of heart. Jesus has overcome the world. As always, if you want to know Jesus as your Lord and Savior, you can do that by reaching out to me. I will tell you how to make Jesus your Savior and heaven your home. Until next time, be blessed, be encouraged. We will see you tomorrow on another news story, and I will give you my opinions and the facts of the story. You have a good day.